In a quiet village nestled between ancient palm groves and red earth paths, where the trees never stopped whispering secrets to one another, and the river was never crossed without respect, there lived a young woman named Adesuwa. The village was called Udo, a small community of thatched roofs and mud brick homes in the heart of the southern lands. Here, life moved to the rhythm of the seasons and the will of the ancestors. Men rose before dawn to tap palm wine or tend yam farms. Women pounded cassava, wove baskets, and sang songs that carried the stories of their mothers and grandmothers. Children played in the dust, but even they knew better than to throw stones into the great river that curved around the village like a protective serpent. The elders said the river was not merely water, it was alive. It listened. But it remembered every promise made at its banks, every offering of kola nuts and white cloth, every disrespectful word spoken in haste. They called it Miri Ochi, the ancient water, and they warned that it never forgave disrespect. But Adesua was different. She was the daughter of a respected farmer and a midwife, tall and graceful, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that sparkled with defiance. While other girls her age helped with chores or listened quietly to the moonlight tales around the fire, Adesua wondered. She questioned everything. Why must we pour libations every new moon? She would ask her mother. Why fear a river that gives us fish and washes our clothes? Her mother would sigh and reply, My child, some things are older than our questions. The river gives life. Yeah, but it can also take it back. Respect it, Adesua. Please. Adesua would laugh. A bright, ringing laugh that carried far, and skip away. The river is just water, Mama, nothing more, nothing less. The villagers shook their heads. Some called her stubborn. Others said she was brave. But the oldest elder, Nze Okon, a man whose face was wrinkled like dried cassava leaves, would watch her with worried eyes and mutter, That girl is testing forces she cannot see. Adesua grew into a young woman of 19 reigns. She helped on the farm, fetched water from the stream, never the sacred river itself, and even joined the dances during the New Yam festival. But every evening, when the sun dipped low and painted the sky the color of burning embers, she would walk to the river's edge. She stood there boldly, her bare feet in the soft mud, wrapper tied high above her knees. She would throw small pebbles into the water, not in offering, but in play. She sang made up songs that mocked the old warnings. River, river, old and slow, what can you do? You only flow. I walk, I laugh, I live my life. No spirit owns my joy or strife. Her voice echoed across the water. The surface remained calm. No ripples answered. No voice rose from the depths. But deep below, where sunlight never reached, something stirred, something ancient, something that had watched generations come and go. It remembered every laugh, every mockery, every broken respect. One fateful evening, the sky turned deep red, as if the sun itself bled. The air was heavy with the scent of impending rain. Adesua walked to the river again, this time with more fire in her step. While she had argued with her mother that day about marriage. I will choose my own husband, she had declared, not some man chosen by the elders because of old river customs. Now, standing at the bank, she laughed loudly, a laugh that cut through the twilight like a knife. You have nothing to do with me, she shouted at the water. I walk where I want. I live as I please. I decide my own path. You are just water, cold, silent, powerless water. The river did not answer with waves of foam. It stayed mirror still. But beneath the surface something moved, slowly, quietly, watching with eyes older than the village itself, a presence that had once been honored with songs and sacrifices now felt the sting of contempt. Adesua turned and walked home, still chuckling to herself. See, nothing happened. The elders are just afraid of their own shadows. That night, the village was unnaturally quiet. No dogs barked, no babies cried. Even the palm fronds seemed to hold their breaths. Adesua entered her family compound, greeted her parents briefly, and retired to her small room at the back of the house. She lit a small kerosene lamp, changed into her sleeping cloth, and lay on her bamboo mat. At first, everything felt normal. Then, she paused. Something felt wrong. The air was damper than usual, heavier. She sat up. A sound, soft, gentle, like water flowing, but inside her house. She turned her head. Nothing. The corners of the room were empty. The door was firmly locked with a wooden bolt. The small window shutters were closed tight against mosquitoes. But the sound remained. Closer now, slower, deliberate. And then a whisper. Adesua. Her name spoken as if by 1,000 tiny streams. She froze, heart suddenly hammering against her ribs. Adesua. This time the voice did not come from the door or the window. It rose from the floor itself, from the packed earth beneath her mat. She stood slowly, backing away. The lamp flame flickered though there was no breeze. A thin stream of water began to seep through the cracks in the floor. Just a small trickle at first, clear and cold. It pooled around her feet. No, she whispered. This is not possible. It's the rainy season, but not inside. But the water did not listen to her denial. It spread more and more, like something alive, purposeful, intelligent. It moved against the natural slope of the floor, climbing toward her instead of away. Adesua gasped and pressed herself against the wall. Stop! Go back! The water rose higher, forming shapes. First, swirling patterns like currents. Then slowly, deliberately, it began to sculpt a face. Eyes deep, dark, unblinking, reflecting the lamplight like polished obsidian. A mouth, wide and ancient. A presence that filled the room with the scent of river mud, fish scales, and something far older. It was the river, inside her home. The voice spoke again, no longer soft. It was deep, heavy, like the weight of countless seasons pressing down. Why did you laugh? Adesua fell to her knees in the rising water. I didn't mean it. It was only words, only jokes. The water continued rising, wrapping around her ankles, then her calves. Cold, firm, like hands with a purpose. Oh, you mocked what you did not understand, the voice rumbled, echoing from the walls now, as if the entire room had become the river. I gave your village fish when the farms failed. I carried your ancestors' souls gently to the other side. I listened to your mother's prayers, and you laughed. Adesua tried to stand, but the water pulled her down gently, yet irresistibly. Please, forgive me. I will make offerings tomorrow. White cloth, palm oil, everything. The river spirit's face rippled with what might have been sadness or amusement. I warned you many times, child, through the elders, through the dreams your mother had when you were small, through the stillness that fell whenever you approached my banks, but you chose mockery. The water climbed to her waist. The walls seemed to breathe, budging slightly, as if made of liquid. Her mat floated. The lamp hissed and went out, plunging the room into darkness lit only by the faint glow of the water itself, a ghostly blue-green. Adesua screamed a raw, terrified sound that should have woken the entire village. But no one heard her. The village slept on, wrapped in an unnatural, heavy slumber. Even her parents in the next room did not stir. The river had claimed this moment for itself. Inside the room, the flood continued. steady, patient, unforgiving. The water spoke of forgotten offerings, of children who once disappeared because their parents grew careless, of lovers who betrayed vows made at the river's edge and paid with their lives. Adesuwa struggled, but the liquid arms held her. They were not cruel in haste, they were deliberate, like a parent correcting a wayward child who had gone too far. You wanted to decide your own path, the voice whispered close to her ear now. Then walk this one with me. Her screams turned to gurgles as the water reached her chest, her neck, her chin. In her final moments, Adesuwa saw flashes, not of her life, but of the river's memory. Women who had bowed and offered prayers, men who had sung thanks after a good catch, the quiet respect that had kept the village safe for generations, and her own laughter, ringing again and again like an accusation. Then, silence. By morning, the sun rose as usual over Udo village. Roosters crowed. Women began sweeping compounds. Children ran to the stream. When Adesuwa's mother knocked on her door and received no answer, worry set in. Neighbors gathered. The wooden bolt was still in place from inside. They forced the door open. The room was dry, perfectly dry, not a drop of water anywhere. The floor was as hard packed as ever. The mat lay neatly. The lamp stood untouched. Adesuwa was gone. No footprints, no struggle marks, no sign of anyone entering or leaving. The villagers searched the bushes, the farms, the paths. They called her name until their voices grew hoarse. Nze Okon, the old elder, stood at the river's edge later that day. He looked at the calm, peaceful water flowing as it always had, sparkling under the sun, giving fish to the fishermen. He shook his head slowly and said, "The river has taken what was owed. She tested what should not be tested, mocked what should not be mocked." Some villagers whispered that they saw a new ripple in the water that day, shaped almost like a young woman's face, smiling sadly before disappearing. From that day forward, the river flowed peacefully once more. Offerings increased. Children were taught the old warnings with even greater care. And sometimes, when the wind passes over the river at night, carrying the scent of wet earth and palm wine, a faint laughter can be heard, not joyful, not mocking, a warning. The laughter of Adesuwa, forever part of the river now. A reminder that some places are not meant to be mocked, some powers are not meant to be tested, and some laughter comes at a price that can never be repaid.